it's not just perennials for pollinators, but you want to plan a garden bed with perennials and annuals that bloom all season that are attracting bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, and dragonflies. So pollinators are essential to the food that we eat and the flowers that we enjoy. I love the picture of the bee just covered in pollen there. That's his job. So pollinators that are found in Alaska, there are 49 species of bumblebees in the United States and 23 species found in Alaska. Of the 75 to 80 species of butterflies that live in Alaska, 35 to 40 live right here in Anchorage and the nearby Chugach Mountains. The rufous is the only hummingbird commonly found in southeast and south central Alaska. Last summer, there were some of those rufous hummingbirds spotted in Palmer, so they are starting to make their way up into Alaska as our weather warms.
Sheila, real quick, Linda's saying Sheila's audio sounds like she's in a bucket. It's a little muffled. Do you have your headset on?
Can you hear me now?
Linda, chime in. Is that better?
Let's see. Can you hear me now? Am I coming through clearly?
Yeah, this is Rhonda. I can hear you. It looks like Linda says, try speaking again, please.
Okay. So after reading this, I had just said that there are rufous hummingbirds starting to be seen farther interior. So last summer, there were a couple of them spotted in Palmer. And so we are starting to get them up into Alaska, where before they were only seen along the coastline out by Alyeska and a little bit up into Bear Valley. So the Arctic bumblebee is the large picture on the right, and then the bee found above the Arctic Circle is the big fuzzy bee. And then over to the left are a lot of common bees found in Alaska. Provide a safe habitat for nesting and resting. With the exception of honeybees, most bees are solitary creatures. 70% of solitary bees live underground, while 30% live in holes inside of trees or hollow stems. Species like bumblebees build their nests in undisturbed land. You can provide a safe haven for them by leaving an untouched area in your garden. Leave tall grass and pieces of wood to give safe spaces. Wooden tubes allow species like mason bees to take up residence. At our store, we've got a few really cute little mason bee houses. There's an area in my yard underneath a spruce tree where I leave natural. I throw some wood there. I have some grass that grows, and that's my pollinator safe area. And you want to leave water for the bees and the other insects to drink. The marbles or rocks give them a place to land and drink safely. So I have a real pretty, just like the one over here on the far left where the hose is, I have just a plant underlined tray filled with those flat bottomed gems, I think they're called, and then I put water in so that the bees, and I see birds drinking out of that occasionally as well. The rufous hummingbird, this is the little bird that started coming into our into the interior a little more. So watch for these guys, and I think we're going to start seeing more of them. So inviting new friends to our gardens. Feeding the hummingbirds does not delay their migration. While the hummingbirds enjoy having your backyard as a nectar source, they aren't relying on you 100%. They'll migrate when they're ready, whether or not feeders are available. It's an instinct. You want to keep feeders clean. Sugar water that has started to grow mold can be dangerous to birds. If you're going to put out feeders, it is essential that you keep them clean and replace the mixture regularly, at least once every 3 to 4 days, and more often in hot weather. If the mixture starts to look cloudy, clean the feeder and replace the nectar immediately. Make feeders easy to find. Hummingbirds are always looking around for food sources, and they're good at finding them, but you have more luck attracting hummingbirds if you put feeders in places where it's easy to spot. Give hummingbirds some space. Goldfinches and some other songbirds may feed together peacefully, but hummingbirds often fight around feeders, chasing one another away. Hummingbirds are adapted to feeding it flowers, which will produce only limited amounts of nectar. So they instinctively protect their food source even when they're at feeders with an unlimited supply. Try putting up 2 or more feeders that can be seen from one another. And you want to place the feeders in the same place as last year. If the hummingbirds return in the spring, they seem to remember where you had flowers or feeders the previous year, and they probably do. So they have a highly developed sense of what scientists call spatial memory. This is a good reason to work extra hard at attracting hummingbirds. Once you get them established, they'll be back for more. The Tananic Arctic butterfly is our only endemic butterfly, meaning that it is specific to our region. There are over 78 species of butterflies that enjoy the Alaskan summers. All they need to stay around is nectar from your blooming plants. They also like some fruit, and we'll talk about that later. But the new butterfly discovered in Alaska in the first 28 years, the picture was taken from an article on the National Geographic webpage. A list of butterflies found along Alaska's hiking trails is available on the website listed below. It's turtlepuddle.org/Alaskan/AK butterflies. They have a list, and people will tell you where they've been hiking and where they spotted butterflies. So it's kind of fun to follow along and see where all the butterflies are. And these are just a really beautiful gallery of an Alaskan museum at University of Alaska Fairbanks. You can make a puddler for butterflies. You can create a place for butterflies to rest, rejuvenate, and gain much needed minerals. Some sand, water, fruit, and rocks in a shallow tray or terracotta saucer. Dog rocks pictured in the upper left provide some minerals good for any creature, and they are safe. So we sell the dog rocks at the store. They generally go into your dog's water to help prevent yard spots. But the minerals in that are also good for all of the pollinators, especially the butterflies who search for minerals. And over on the far right, you can see where that's a puddler created with a plant that they enjoy, some rocks so that they can get a drink into the water, and then they put some fruit in there that just helps give them some energy. The Alaska state insect, it's the 4-spotted skimmer dragonfly. Alaska has 31 species of dragonflies. Dragonflies are not pollinators, but some consider them beneficial to the garden because adults feed on mosquitoes, gnats, flies, swarming ants, and just about any flying insect small enough for them to catch, including aphids. So having these guys around is beneficial to the bugs that, the bad bugs that you don't want in your garden. Tips for attracting pollinators. So single flowers, those with one ring of petals around the central disc, provide more nectar and pollen than pom-pom shaped double flowers. These tend to be most attractive to blue, purple, and yellow flowers, though you'll find them on flowers other colors too. Include plants that are native to Alaska. They'll be adapted to our soils and climate conditions and will be magnets for wild bees and other native pollinators. Many pesticides, even organic ones, will harm pollinators. For example, if you use a pesticide to control caterpillars, you're risking harming butterfly larvae. Attracting dragonflies can help with pests. Planting mint, lavender, marigolds, and more can be a natural way to keep away unwanted pests. Also, just using your hose and rinsing off, if you find caterpillars, you can rinse them off and try to eliminate them, or cut off the branch where you find them, put it into a plastic bag and get rid of it, rather than spraying anything that's a pesticide. Include plants of various heights in your landscape, including flowering trees and shrubs. A pre-planned garden design is readily available. You can Google this and they'll give you a layout of plants that help attract pollinators. And if you do a search under zone 3 to 4, which is what Anchorage is, basically zone 3 closer to the mountains, and you can get away with zone 4 plants closer to the water. But if you Google that, they'll give you a layout already done to help you for planning and planting. This is a butterfly and hummingbird garden. So they give you a list of the plants. They show you a nice layout where it keeps them grouped together, and it lays them out by height and by blooming. So when they bloom, early spring, mid spring, late spring, etc. And then you want to keep a garden journal. It just helps later for reference. So here are some of the things you'll want to record in your journal. A sketch of your garden layout from season to season, pictures of your garden, a list of successful plants and those to avoid in the future. Plant tags are a great resource for specific information. Bloom times, if you have to replace something, you will know when it blooms. So in my garden beds, I have things that bloom all season. So like I had said, early summer, midsummer, late summer, early spring, mid-spring, late spring, and then throughout the summer. So if something dies, I want to, of course, keep something blooming all season. So I have it recorded that that was a mid-spring. So when I replace it, I want to replace it with something that blooms mid-spring so that my entire garden blooms all season. And then a list of plants you'd like to try along with their growing requirements. When you started seeds and transplanted plants. And then plant sources. Mill and Feed has the best plants, of course. Expenses and receipts, unless you don't want to know, and then, just get rid of those and put that part of it out of your mind. Do a daily, weekly, and monthly observation. And then dates when you divide perennials. About every 2 to 3 years, you can divide irises and daylilies. And if you keep track of that, it's just easier to know and to plan when are grouped well for the pollinators. It gives them some different heights and places that they can land. Again, it's a grouping. They like groupings where they can go from plant to plant and collect a little bit of pollen as they go and as they feed. So this is a nice grouping. It's got a water source at that bird bath in the center. You've got groups of flowering plants and trees. So this is a great spot for pollinators. It's protected by that big fence. So yeah, really nice spot for pollinators there. Same thing here. You want to create a place where you feel great going out and sitting in the sunshine at your bench, and you can see all the butterflies and pollinators come through. You've got a bird bath, thermometer outside, so you have everything you need to have a really nice home for all of those pollinators and birds in your neighborhood.
Sheila, Linda is still saying she's having a hard time hearing you. It sounds kind of muffled.
Okay, I have my volume turned all the way up, and I will speak up a little bit.
Okay.
And try to speak a little more slowly and clearly. Hopefully that will help her hear better.
Thank you.
So this is a list of plants that attract bees. It's both perennials and annuals. This will be recorded, so you don't have to worry about rushing to make this list. You can go back later in the recording and take a look at this list and Google some of these names to see if this is a plant that you want to add to your perennial garden or your annual garden. And then there are all kinds of lists all over the internet with creating bee-friendly gardens. These are just a few of the very friendly to bees. Nice pollination for them and lots of color for you. Also, lots of herbs attract them. It also helps with keeping away some of the pests. So a nice list of herbs, perennials, and annuals that'll help save the pollinators. Safer Brand provides a great list found on the internet. So their top 30 plants that attract pollinators. And this is their list. It starts with annuals. I really like this list because it gives you the zones where these plants will grow best. So again, the list, zones, the zinnia down here, zones 2 to 11. The pincushion flower, zones 5 to 9. But if something is out of your zone, you can still grow it here just as an annual. And perennials that'll grow well here, of course, like I said, we're zone 3 to 4, depending on where you live. The mint, if you get mint, just know it's going to spread. Some of these things that spread quickly, I like to grow in containers. I have a container of mint outside. It comes back each year. The only thing I do is put a little bit of straw around the container to help keep the roots warm through the winter. There we go. And that was a nice list provided by Safer. Again, a great list because it shows the zones. Here's another one that was provided on the internet. It's Hummingbirds and Butterfly Buffet. You want to plan a smorgasbord for their enjoyment and yours. So the nice thing about this list is it shows you whether it's full sun, part sun, shade. So it helps you plan a little better. If you've got an area that's, say, part shade, this will tell you what will grow better in part shade. And then selecting the plants for your pollinator-friendly garden. It's important to select a variety of native plants, as modern hybrids often produce less pollen and nectar and may dominate your garden. Native plants will attract more native pollinators and can serve as egg-laying and larva hosts plants for some pollinator species. So let's pause for a minute and talk about that. As you're cleaning up your gardens now, you rake off the leaves and the dead stems from last year. Rake them into a pile and let that pile stay for a day or two so that the pollinators that you've disturbed can wake up and exit from those hollow stems and places. Don't bag it right away as you're bagging up some of your pollinators. So I always just rake it into a little pile and come back 2 or 3 days later and then clean it up. Some plants are useful for both nectar and larvae food are Nuka lupin, camas, viburnum, aster, and clover. Additional pollinator-friendly Alaskan wildflowers include Anarcha, valerian, northern geranium, monk's hood, yarrow, violets, Indian paintbrush, and western columbine. These colorful native species can provide nectar and pollen, are adapted to our climate, and require less care than garden exotics. Plant groups of native plants versus single plants to better attract pollinators. Large patches of each plant species help pollinators forage more efficiently. And bees cannot see red, but are attracted to some flowers that reflect ultraviolet light. Small bees have short tongues and prefer packed clusters of tiny flowers, such as daisies and mint. Examples of bee-attracting flowers include monkey flowers, leopard's bane, shrubby cinquefoil, forget-me-nots, iris, and delphinium. And bees love lavender. Add zones 3 to 4 lavender. In zone 3 and 4, planting these 4 varieties in the border of your vegetable garden will attract butterflies and bees, while repelling varmints that you don't want feeding in your garden. Plant phenomenal at the back of the border with Munstead in the middle and Hidecoat at the front to take advantage of the various heights from these fragrant plants. With lavender in zone 3 or 4, you don't have to take just one. So those are all types of lavenders that'll grow well here. The Munstead is an English lavender that is hardy from zones 4 to 9. If you get reliable snow cover, you can grow it in zone 3 as well. It grows 12 to 18 inches tall and needs little care other than winter protection. So just straw it over in the fall. Wherever I put a patch of straw over something, I cut a small piece of bird netting and pin it over that straw so that the straw doesn't get removed if we have high winds. Hidecoat is a hardy is hardy from zones 4 to 9. Like Muncead, you can get by in zone 3 with reliable snow cover or other winter protection. It has silvery gray foliage and the flowers are more purple than blue. The scent is rich, but it's a shorter plant than Muncead and only grows to 12 inches in height. Don't confuse Hydecoat lavender with Hydecoat giant lavender. Hydecoat Hydecoat is an English lavender, while Hydecoat giant is a lavandin, so it's a hybrid. Phenomenal is a hybrid introduction to the hardy lavender class from the lavandin group. It is hardy from zone 4 to 8 as other hardy lavenders, but it has the best traits of both French and English lavenders. It grows 24 to 34 inches tall, much taller than the Muncead or Hydecoat. Phenomenal has silver foliage and lavender blue flowers with a mounding habit typical of French lavenders. It also has one of the highest essential oil contents of any lavender variety. It does well in hot, humid summers while still being hardy in winter conditions. It's an excellent choice for ornamental use in gardens, for fragrance, for fresh and dried arrangements, and for essential oil. Planning your garden, you want to think like a pollinator. So you can take a look at this where there's a log laying there where bees can go inside and feel protected. There's showy flowers. There's groupings of nice flowers for them to bounce from flower to flower to get pollen from them. There's some hollow tube wood laying towards the center front of that bed. So there's all kinds of things that you can do in your yard to leave it a little more natural and attract the pollinators. Just some pictures of local flowers with some of the pollinators on there. Plant a pollinator-friendly garden. You can always find a little sign and let your neighbors know, I'm not just letting this grass grow tall because I'm ignoring it. Put in a sign that says you have a pollinator-friendly garden and they'll be more understanding. So let me know if there are any questions and I'll be happy to answer.
Linda did chime in and said, I have several different kinds of nepta, I don't know how do you pronounce that, catmint, and bees and some butterflies seem to like it.
Yes, there's also a variety that I grow in my garden called Veronica Speedwell, and that thing is a buzz with all kinds of pollinators from the minute it starts blooming until late into the summer. So yeah, catmint is another one that they enjoy. Any other questions?
Are there plants that we should be planting now and others that you would recommend that we do later in the season? I realize following a garden plan would be easy, but you know, what's your own experience?
So right now, my soil is not quite warm enough to start planting. I have a soil thermometer. It's about a $10 item. It's one of the best tools that any gardener can have. So I've got it right now in my raised vegetable garden outside, and the soil is about 46 degrees. I wait to plant until the soil reaches 50 to 55, and at that point you can start putting in your annuals and any perennials that you buy from the garden center. I've started a lot of annuals inside from seed, and I'm hardening them off now to be ready to go in when the soil is 55 degrees. So as I have a bed that I've already planned out with everything growing, but I add a little bit to it each year so that it's not a huge expense all at once.
So what plants would you recommend to plant when the soil is warm enough for some perennials?
So any of these, the bee balm is a big, they love that. There's the columbines that come back each year. I'm a person that loves perennials. I have 9 perennial gardens in my yard. And so I try to find the perennials that attract them. I do a few pots of annuals just as color that I set in my beds, but yeah, I look for the annuals to plant now. So anything that's a zone 3 to 4. So here's a list of them, and then some of these, any of these that are zone 3 to 4, you can plant in just probably another week or so when the soil is warm enough. So this is the list of the perennials here, starting with 10 and going down through, I believe it's 29. Yes. So any of those will be great to start with.
And we do have quite a few of these already available in the garden center.
Yes.
And what about berries like haskaps well, I guess berries in general? I didn't really see much about that there, although they do flower. That's probably what would be.
Yes, they do flower, and then, you know, with your haskaps and several other fruit varieties, you have to have 2 plants of different varieties, and you depend on the pollinators coming in to pollinate those, especially your haskaps. So they will come to those flowers, but by having some of these other perennials and annuals around, you're attracting more of them to find your haskaps and find your other apples and other berries to get them pollinated so that you have a nice fruit production.
And do you generally recommend in your own gardens or your own practice putting herbs in with perennials, or do you have like the herbs in container gardens and do you keep them separate, or you put them together, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter, but I do have several herbs in my perennial gardens, and then I grow containers of herbs that I set throughout the yard just to help with mosquitoes and, you know, different pests. If I see pests in an area, I always Google to see which herbs are going to be best to distract them from there. And I try to either plant that particular herb nearby, or I get a pot of that herb and set it nearby, depending on the garden area. But yes, put them throughout your garden. I have vegetables in my flower gardens just because of the different textures and the flowers. And I just feel like the pollinators come in and help everything grow better when you have a really nice variety: herbs, vegetables, annuals, and perennials.
Oh, yeah. I'm seeing a note from Linda about anise hyssop that is good. What are there herbs that are particularly attractive in your experience in Anchorage for pollinators?
Did they do a separation? They did annuals, perennials. They didn't list herbs. Well, bee balm is a nice herb. The catmint, of course. I thought I did a
You
list.
did have the pineapple sage on that list, and
Yeah.
we do have some of that in the herb greenhouse, which is a great herb. It smells delicious, and it actually has a really pretty, like, reddish flower on it as well.
Yeah, and here's my list. This screen has that list of lavender, catmint, sage, cilantro, thyme, fennel, and borage are just a few that really help attract the pollinators.
Great.
Let's see. That's not really, but that's got a nice list with what, 7 herbs that help. And I have lavender in pots that I set throughout the garden, a couple of different varieties. This year I am hoping to incorporate some of those zone 3 lavenders into my beds, hoping that they'll come back each year. So that's my goal this year, to incorporate more zone 3 lavender.
Does lavender, did you just say that? I should know, but I don't know. So lavender is a perennial, it comes back?
Not always, it depends on the variety. So let's see where we had talked about the lavender.
Yeah,
Right.
I picked up, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, the Mun's Head is one that does best in the Anchorage area. I've been told that by several well-experienced gardeners that the Mun's Head is a really hardy lavender.
Okay, yeah, I got some, and I have to look and see what kind it is. From Home Depot, I think, like a week ago in a pot. And but I guess now I feel like I want to get more of it.
Always more plants. You can never have enough. And I like to spread it, a group in one bed, well, with so many beds that I have, but I would plant 3 to 4 plants nearby each other in another bed, maybe 2 or 3 more plants, just so that you develop a nice cluster for those. And if I were you, I'd put it near anything that you need to be pollinated. So your hascaps or apple trees, that's what we do, is help bring in the pollinators with these other plants, and then they'll find those berries and fruits.
Yeah, we have monkshood and geranium, forget-me-nots, iris. We have mostly perennials, and I didn't really. I know we do get pollinators, but we haven't really actively tried to bring in more. So this is very helpful.
Oh, good. Yes, this will help throughout your whole garden. There are plants for attracting things and plants for distracting things. So, as you plan your gardens, always look for what you need. If you need to distract or not bees, but aphids or other plants, try to plant some more herbs or marigolds or other things that will help distract them. And then where you want to attract things, of course, plant the things that will help bring them in. A water dish, like I had showed in the beginning, that is an essential for, I see so many bees and birds stopping to get a drink. Right that, here we go, wait, go to the water. These kind of containers with a little bit of a marble or a rock or seashell, anything to help them land on there and get a drink. This is a big deal to help bring them in. My water containers, I check the water every day if I can. I keep it clean, but it's a busy, busy place.
Yeah, that's great. And I didn't really think we had a chance with hummingbirds, so that's actually interesting.
Yes. Yep, we are starting to see more of those guys. I was really excited to hear that they had made it into Palmer and that they were being seen quite often out in Palmer. They're becoming a regular out there.
And I've heard with the hummingbird feeders, it's the sugar water should be clear, but they need red as an attractant, so the feeder should have some red in it. Is that your experience?
Yes, so you do want it to be clear sugar water. Um, Generally, a hummingbird feeder has a plastic red flower as the feeding, where they would stick their beaks in and their tongues in. That part of it is red, so that should attract them. If you find one that doesn't have red, just put something red on there that'll help attract them. But most of those hummingbird feeders already have red on them.
And will it distract hummingbirds if you have other kinds of bird feeders for other kinds of birds? Does that feel like competition for them?
No, but just keep them separated, several feet apart, because of course you have your small chickadees and your red poles coming into the one feeder, and then your hummingbirds will come to the other. And just so that there's no competition, just hang them in separate areas. And keep in mind, when you do put your feeders up, all types of birds like a little bit of a protected area. So under tree branches or under the eave of your house, if it's out in the open, they feel vulnerable to larger predator birds.
Yep, that makes sense.
And then don't forget the fruit. If you like the butterflies, where did I have that picture with the fruit?
Yeah, that was interesting. I saw sliced oranges or something in the.
Yeah, right there. The sliced oranges, a little bit of a rock for them to land on and get a drink, and then they've got some sort of plant in there that they like. To me, that looks like parsley, but I'm not positive. So you can give them that whole scenario of, the energy they need, the drink of water, and then of course the plant if you do a container like that.
And what is it too early to expect butterflies, or will they be coming soon?
Oh, I've already seen butterflies in my garden.
Oh. And is it any kind of citrus? And it looks like they're just cut in half there.
In my experience, it's oranges, and then I had seen pears, and another person had, I believe it looked like plums, but I'm not positive. So that's something, if you want to know for sure, I'm sure you could Google that and find out exactly what fruits would benefit those butterflies.
Yeah. No.
And Linda was asking where you got the Zone 3 lavender. Do we have that variety in the greenhouse, Sheila?
I have not seen it yet, but I know that we get herbs in several times a week. And so I will look for it, Brooke, and if we have it, I'll ask you to post on our Facebook that we do have the Zone 3 lavender.
Okay, perfect. That'd be great.
Okay, any other questions? All right, well, I hope this class has been beneficial and given you some really good information to help attract all those pollinators and bring in some dragonflies to eat the mosquitoes, and, you know, just plan your garden so that there's something for everybody. And, you know, replace things that die with something that could be beneficial to the pollinators and other things that'll help distract the guys that you don't want. So, we're always available at Mill and Feed to help you with your plant selection and to let you know when plants come in. And we have all kinds of organic fertilizers. We've got some really beautiful containers this year. Our greenhouses are full and going like crazy, and more plants are showing up daily at our garden center. So,
And Sheila will be at the store today from 12 to 4. And then are you here tomorrow, Sheila?
yes, tomorrow 12 to 4 as well.
Yeah, so you can always ask for her and she can always help you out back in the garden center. And Linda's asking, do we have dog rocks? And yes, we do have the dog rocks. They'll actually be in that package that you see here on the slide.
Yes, they're on an end cap back in the doggy diner, I believe.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for attending the class, and I hope you've learned something, and I hope that it was a little bit of fun for you to help give you some inspiration in your garden.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.